Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. Warm welcome to those of you who are joining for the first time. I know we always have new people that are coming in, and I want to welcome you as you're coming in. We're going to look at today what we said, what we talked about yesterday. As we were doing yesterday's reading, it really seems like there's a lot coming to a head for both you and your person in your individual lives. And so we're going to zoom in on you in this reading and just kind of find out what you need from your situation, what you need from you. Because it seems like one of the things that we saw was that, and we've seen this a couple times now, the situation with your person has kind of prepared you for what you're now facing. And what you are now facing in this situation is also going to prepare you a little bit for yeah, things with your person, things that you can now begin to do a little bit better or process better or maybe even execute on a little bit better with your person. We're going to go ahead and look into it and just kind of understand what it is that your situation needs and get you some practical information to go on. Um, of course, it's a general reading, but it's a general reading for this collective. So, it's not going to resonate with everybody. It's going to resonate for people who are really, who belong as part of this collective. And so, if you get in and you find out this feels like it's for you and you feel like it's your story, then you may want to go back and check out some of the other messages or maybe even subscribe. So we're going to start off by looking at, as I always do, what's the mood of the energy, the energetic backdrop, what is in that, what's in the energy that you're swimming around in today. This is that ever-present energetic backdrop question that I like to ask because it's always helpful to understand the big picture. And to understand your part in it, so if you see the energy that you're in, then it can help to put things into perspective. So we've got Three of Swords. It's an energy of sadness, and an energy of not necessarily knowing how to get out of that sadness. There's a sense of despair associated with this. That's a little bit of kind of what I get out of it. It's a little bit of despair, a sense of not knowing how to take that next step, not knowing what that next step ought to be. And that's in today's energy. That's not completely dissimilar from what we saw in yesterday's energy. It was just buzzing with discomfort. Yeah, there's a sense of not being able to necessarily partner up or feel like you would even be good in a partnership at this moment. And yet, so much work has been done. There is kind of an understanding of what's possible and what you want. And this is so perfect. These cards come out, and it's like I can already feel what I want to tell you, but the cards are coming out as if they're telling the story just exactly the way, like it couldn't be better. The story itself could be, though, because it feels like this is pretty uncomfortable with the Two of Cups in reverse and the Nine of Wands in reverse. There's this awkward sort of realization that there are lessons that have been learned here with the Nine of Wands. Those are places where you're no longer resisting. You know some things. You have figured out some things. You have seen some light as well. So this 10 of Pentacles talks about understanding. It's a little bit like that Nine of Cups question that we keep seeing. Do you really understand what wish fulfillment looks like for you? Do you really understand what you want? This is very specifically in a physical way. This is in the physical world. It's what you want your household to look like. And that has sort of crystallized in recent times for you in some different ways. I think it's also raising some questions, though. With this Eight of Swords energy, that's definitely a sense of transformation is just outside my grasp. And the thing about the Eight of Swords is it actually isn't, because that's something that you're able to lift yourself out of. But that may not be happening today. Despite the progress that you've made, there's still this sense of sort of difficulty and chagrin. There's something that hasn't gone well, but it's not necessarily anything that's somebody's fault. And but it's like that, and yet it's still incredibly difficult to figure out what to do with the emotion. And this 10 of Pentacles, that's a realization on your part that turns out that's going to be really useful for you, but right now it probably feels a little bit out of place or not as easy to engage. So, like with this 9 of Wands in the reverse and the 10 of Pentacles in the upright, it's like you figured out some things. You have figured out some really impressive, amazing things, but the ultimate in that transformation that you want is just out of reach for you. And so being able to get past that overthinking is going to be a big deal. I can already kind of see that overthinking is part of the issue that is happening right now. We've got the 6 of Swords in reverse again. We've seen a lot of this one. This is the energy not clearing up and not becoming calm. Because when it becomes calm, you can reflect on things a little bit more easily. You can understand what maybe really want to do. You can understand what your plan needs to be. You can reflect. And with the 6 of Swords in reverse like that, it's not ever really getting to a place where you can properly reflect, because it's like a lot of times you see a boat on the water and it's water that isn't getting calm. And so you can't look over the side of the boat and reflect and see your reflection in the water in a raging rapid. And when your emotions are sitting there in a raging rapid, it's kind of difficult to reflect on emotional topics. And it's the exact same concept, but with water instead of emotions. And, water and emotions are very much linked in the tarot and in many other places, certainly in our psyche. So the Page of Wands in reverse coming out here is also significant because this is something that threatens to want to depress you. It seems to me like it's going to take more than that. Like you have too much perspective that you've gained. There might have been a version of you that would fall to this, but I don't believe that's the current version. We have the Moon card in reverse here telling you, and this is that same thing I was just saying, you're not the person who's going to fall for that anymore. You've grown as a result of the situation with your person. You've grown such that now when you have to evaluate other difficult situations, you actually evaluate them differently. It's that 10 of Cups thing. It's that 10 of Cups lesson that kept coming back and saying it's not just figuring out what you want. It's also what do you do when you think you may be confronted by it, particularly because what you want changes over time. What you really need and what your wish fulfillment would be changes over time. And so understanding that you may be confronted with something that is even better than what you've seen before, you've got to be able to receive that into your life. And so cat's out of the bag for you. Your person's still working on it, but you get it. That means that you've learned a little something about releasing the outcome because you understand that you can't always predict something amazing that's coming your way or even something difficult, right? And so you didn't predict that this person was going to have this impact on you. And that's part of what's arming you to handle this new situation the way that you're handling it, because you already know not to just make snap assumptions about what you want. The issue here, though, is the mood that is all around you, and it's pervasive across you, your person, a couple of places I've noticed, and then that's really been in the last reading or two, though, and we've seen it kind of building, and there's a lot of energy of building in yesterday's reading, I noticed. But with this 5 of Cups, this is be sure you're paying attention to where you put your attention, where you put your thoughts. Make sure that you're not focusing solely on things that are going poorly. There's definitely something magical to behold here as well. Maybe worth writing some of it down so that you can come back later and find the magical stuff. That's not always easy to do when you're in the throes of it. That's something that's it's not a 100 level skill. There will come a time when, and maybe you're there, when you're able to have extreme gratitude for the situation you're going through while you're going through it. You're not necessarily expected to have that. However, just that recognition that this is going to give you some of that some of that amazing fodder that has helped to build you to see where you are, to put you where you are today. So if you look at the you of 10 years ago and how you would handle your life today, it's almost laughable, right? But when you think about what you're going to be in another decade and how you're going to handle things then and how you're going to view them, this is part of what's building you to get to that place. So let's take a look a little bit more about that's the energy of today. Let's see what your situation needs from you and what you need from you. That's really what we're going to do here in this next section here. Um, this is what I really started feeling like we needed when we were looking at the reading from yesterday to kind of see, all right, we went ahead and we put lessons in every single reading. Okay, we put lessons in every single reading at the behest of the universe, because every time we asked what was going to happen, what we got back was, you don't need to know what's going to happen. You need to understand that nothing can happen until you learn these lessons. So we started doing readings about lessons, and we found out that there really is not something that can be encapsulated in a single reading. It's something that we need to have a daily beat on. And because of the type of people that join this collective, I'm going to honor that and make sure, because you guys are the types of people who go in and actually do the work. So we see a card that we've seen before. This is the Justice card in reverse. And yesterday, when we got in and got into the extended, you'll probably recognize that this card came out. So we understand from that that there was the repeat of that message that we've seen actually a lot of, around being able to be comfortable in a situation that is not comfortable. But the thing is, you've gone up a level, like you figured out how to be uncomfortable or comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And honestly, not something that you were a stranger to. You've done this before. A lot of you are more advanced in your careers, and things not being resolved is just a fact of life. It's like your work will never be done. It's not something you get upset about. You get the important stuff done, and you polish up the edges where it's necessary. The rest of it, though, is the job is not getting things done in a lot of cases, and so it's a matter of not always feeling like you're gonna have things hanging over your head. And this is the same sort of thing. I'm like harping on a work thing, but I really feel like a lot of you will understand it because of that. And yet, it's still, this is a spot where it's a spot in your life where it's particularly difficult to do that. Something has you not just emotionally sequestered, but also the other issue of it is this person has opened you up emotionally. So you, as we saw in the recent reading, the one from yesterday, you're learning a small lesson around vulnerability where your person is learning a rather large one. Your rather small lesson around vulnerability is still not small when you're in the middle of it. It still feels intense. And yet some of you are over there able to feel intense gratitude as the lessons are still unfolding to you. And that is something that you have to do pretty consciously. But here we go. We've got that lesson of the 10 of cups. Are you looking at a blessing in disguise right now? Are you needing to relearn this lesson that we just did? So I keep getting major gratitude. They're going to get there. This is going to be something that you're going to understand. You can make decisions while everything is still formulating, but can you make a 10 of cups kind of decision like what we just what we just looked at in previous readings, and now comparing that with what's happening in your life today? Are you able to look at something that turns out it could be a pretty significant blessing and see it as such, even though there may be some other things attached to it? I guess that's a question that I would ask you. Is there any chance you are looking at a blessing in disguise? And is there any chance that you could, at least in your mind, begin to see it that way? So there's a tendency not to. There's a reason not to. Comes from your own values, your own stuff that was formed when you were very young and trying to figure out how to approach life. So we know your person is doing a lot of reevaluation of that right now. In fact, they had started asking questions about what those values before you came along, and you just cemented those questions for them, which didn't necessarily answer those. That's why we keep seeing the two of wands and things like that. But it's there's definitely a sense of, you need to turn around and look at this. And we also understand that you have the fortitude to actually look the truth in the eye. We saw you doing it in the previous reading that I think was the extended. I can't remember. Sometimes I'll remember which reading it was, but not whether it was the YouTube one or the extended. And they all run together. So if you haven't seen it, it's probably worth checking out yesterday's reading. But at some point, whether it was in the main YouTube or in the extended, there was a piece where you were looking right into the eyes of the truth, and you were saying, you know what, it's uncomfortable, but I've got this. What I would say is keep going, because you it's hard to tell exactly what this is. It's got that 7 of Cups sort of fogginess to it. You know, you've got options here, but you may not really be able to see them. The Judgment card is here telling you to use that judgment of your intuition and your higher self to help you. This whatever this decision is that you've got to face, you're not alone. You have the backup and the support of your higher self on on call. You can ask for that support as you need it. You can ask just for your higher self is always there, okay? And it has nothing else to do but be with you, because it is you. And it's like, I've talked about it before, but it's like an iceberg. If we want to, there's a neat metaphor that I like to use with an iceberg. And so with this iceberg, the piece that's visible above the ocean to you, above the surface of the water, is the portion that you're aware of. That's the self that you're aware of. Then beneath the water, there's a lot more, and of course, it's not necessarily something that's immediately accessible to you or immediately obvious to you, but it is there, and you would notice it significantly if it was not. Now, then it's sitting in the water of the ocean, and that is like the how it sits in the energy of the overall universe. So you're surrounded by it, and so is everyone else. But your higher self goes deeply into it and can give you some additional assistance and support. In fact, you wouldn't be floating above the water there, the portion that you can see, without that. That's the piece that you want to go ahead and ask to lend you strength. That's the piece that, as you're going through this judgment piece, don't rush yourself in any decisions, but be decisive when the time comes. Okay, that's one thing that I would say. There is definitely a sense of you borrowing from within your own personal strength, but it's strength that you have built because it is part of your higher self. You need to be able to reconcile, though, between your higher self and the part that you're able to easily access. Meditation is a great way to do this. Prayer will help you do this. And you can also access your higher power in much the same way. And for a lot of people, I mean, everybody's route is really personal. I did a reading, or it wasn't a reading, it was a video back in October that talked about how meditation works, and how to go ahead and get started if it was something that you were interested in doing, but really maybe didn't have a lot of insights around. So, what we see here with the Ace of Pentacles coming out, we've got um, we've got that door not opening. Remember, we've got the door between you and your person that has it's got door stops on both sides, and so it's particularly difficult for either of you to open the door. Theoretically, you're looking to open that door and allow your person to walk through it, so that your person can walk through it, but you're not going to sit and watch who walks through that door. Here's the thing, though. There's stuff coming through that door. There's things that want to come through that door. And you're unlocking that with all of these aces. We've got the Ace of Pentacles, that's going to be the door that opens. The Ace of Cups, that's that flow of love. The Ace of Swords is that new truth. And the one I don't see yet is the Ace of Wands, which is that thing that's going to set your soul on fire. And so this is something that is conspicuously missing at this point, but hasn't really had the opportunity to come out because it's so much something that you're working on. We are seeing this Seven of Cups come out, though, and that's going to be around the confusion that you have in trying to figure out how to follow your truth, because sometimes being completely willing to follow your truth is one thing, but figuring out what that even means and which direction to go still creates some issues for you, can potentially still create some issues. You got to be patient and just keep asking the question, but ask it of your higher self, because those questions are going to come, the answers are going to come to you. They do sometimes come to you, and then you realize, I can't unhear this. So don't ask a question if you don't feel like you're ready for the answer. I can't stress that enough. Sometimes I feel like I ask questions a little bit more freely, and I end up with information that I now have to act upon because I did ask the question. You can't unsee it. It can be a little uncomfortable, but one of the things we're learning to do is to get used to being in that uncomfortable situation. It expands your comfort zone, and it makes you It makes you better able to deal with everything. And when your situation with your person starts to culminate and turn into move to its next step, which I kind of feel like is imminent, you need to have this under your belt. You need to be prepared with this. So let's go ahead and in the place where I usually start with the lessons, this is like a heavy lessons reading. We're going to go into practically speaking what needs to happen next. Okay, and we've got the star. Aim high. And I'm reminded of when I was in second grade. There was a poster on the wall, and it had a picture of a rocket going up, and underneath it said, "Aim at nothing, and you will hit it." And I realized how true that was across the course of my life. I remember seeing that. Here, though, you're not necessarily aiming for a specific thing. You're going a little bit broader and saying, I'm taking in what there is to take in. This is like level two. You're not just aiming for something, you're trying to figure out what it is that you need to aim for so that you can sort of adjust on the fly because you've already got yourself in the quest. You've already got yourself working toward the spiritual awakening. So this is going to be a tool that allows you to move forward in it a little bit farther and helps you to advance. You've got the Seven of Swords of your own self-trust that starts here. And this is a miraculous and wonderful type of self-trust. This is the sort of thing that, as we saw in yesterday's reading, and this one I think was in the extended, we saw that Seven of Fire. I think it was just one. So Seven of Fire in whatever deck, and it was about not feeling confident versus feeling confident. We saw the Seven of Swords come out later to talk about that around you, and it was your Seven of Swords was also in reverse. It talks about you having a pretty decent sense of self-trust, but now you just need to be able to turn it around and be able to trust the situation, trust the universe. You've got the Nine of Cups. This is about figuring out what you want. Actually get practical about that. Go ahead and write some things down. If you've got a situation that you're evaluating, look at it in pros and cons. Look at the logical side so that you can pit that against the emotional. And when you do, make sure that you are actually looking for those difficult decisions where you have to rely on self trust to make them. Look for situations where you're unwilling to allow something to change that feels like it needs to change. This is going to be this death card that doesn't want to turn over, has the feeling of the tower that doesn't want to fall. It's something that you might have some control over actually getting done. And then you've got this Page of Swords in reverse that comes out. This is usually I reserve the skittish concept for the Knight of Swords, but it's coming out here. You've got a little bit of skittishness here in the Page of Swords that honestly it's not something that you want to guard against or necessarily make a big deal when you see it, but look for it. It's the edge of something. When you feel that skittishness and you aren't sure what to do next, look at the root of it and not just the here's the thing I don't feel like doing right now. That isn't the root. That's still at the level of symptoms. So to find the root cause, you're going to have to go in a little bit more deeply. Ask why a few times. Four of Pentacles. Now, this one's about letting go, and this is specifically saying there is something to let go of. With the Four of Pentacles, you're holding on to something in an almost miserly way emotionally, but it feels like you're holding on to it to so that you can again move toward pleasure and stay away from pain. We talked about that one recently as well. That's a normal thing for any organism to do. There's nothing strange about that. However, sometimes it's not immediately obvious what the impact of your actions is going to be, and so it feels like letting go is going to be terrifying and not pleasant. And it turns out that once you let go of whatever this is, it's actually going to help things move along. You are, because of this thing that you're holding on to, you're fighting battles that are not necessary. And these can be kind of difficult to find because it's a matter of that same lesson that keeps coming in around, man, I wish this devil in reverse was part of the reading. That we've got this Ten of Wands though that shows that load that you're carrying that contains too many things that are outside of your own control, and that's what has you fighting battles that are not necessary. So when we get into the extended, I think we're going to get in a little bit more deeply on what your situation needs from you, because I feel like there was more to see there with that. But also, in light of this, I'm curious to understand. I definitely want to get in a little bit more practically here, because this is starting to get really good. It's telling you to look for something that makes you skittish, look for something that you don't want to change, but it's at the level of like a tower that doesn't want to fall. See, and you can tell because it's going to be a place where you're going to want to rely, you're going to need to rely on your self trust in order to answer what would seem to be a relatively simple challenge. You've got something that you're having a hard time letting go of, and you're taking on too much burden for what you actually, compared with what you actually have control of. So, and part of that is going to be because that's part of what's causing these battles that you are continuing to fight that maybe don't require being fought. Okay, the only one we want here is this Four of Wands. This is the stability that you're headed for. And this Two of Swords here is an honorable mention. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that up. Um, but this Four of Wands is about it's about balance, but it's about building it from the bottom up. So this Death card, it felt like a tower card to me in the reverse. So this is a tower you don't want to fall. It's something that you don't want to allow to end, so that, or to let go of, so that you can transform. But it's actually going to be the key to this transformation that feels like it's being kept from you right now. So it's you. You're able to access that, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy. It's a decision that you have to make. And I'm just going to lay this down because I think we're done. Yes, we're done pulling cards. But it's a matter of a decision that you need to make that's going to help you. And again, we've seen this in previous readings. You're going to have the option to go one way that causes you to have to learn a lesson again. And it's okay. There's no wrong answer. Or you're going to go another way that has you resolving this once and for all, so that when you come back, when you get done with this, you move on to a different type of crossroads based upon the turn that you make here. So this decision is critical. There's not necessarily a wrong decision. It's just about what you're ready for. So we're going to go into the extended, and we're going to look into this a little bit more deeply. I think we need more practical information, and we need to understand a little bit more of what underlies that. So what it is that you need from you. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and jump in there. And so the link will be down below. Hope to see you there. Otherwise, best of luck in this. And I look forward to seeing you again in a future reading.